The Cincinnati Reds are over 500 as we head into the All-Star break, and that is just okay. It's okay.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. Locked On Reds is brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Steven Offenbaker. His name's Jeff Carr. We are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We are lifelong baseball fans. We've been podcasting about the Reds for a combined 14 seasons. We love talking baseball. We love talking Reds, and we love talking about all those things with you. On today's show, the pick is in. We are going to weigh the risk versus the reward of the Reds' newest draft pick. We're going to get to that a little bit later in the show. We're also going to be talking about the trade deadline a little bit more in depth now that we have reached the All-Star break. We're going to talk about some of the possible names you could see linked to trade rumors that the Reds might be willing to send out. We're going to get to that in just a few minutes. And where we're going to start is with the Reds taking 4 of 7 instead of 5 of 7. That leaves them in what Jeff just termed an okay position. They're doing all right. They're 4 games above 500 as we record, as we head into the All-Star break. They are in contention for the wild card. We're going to talk about the Colorado Rockies series, and we're going to talk about where this team is. All of that on today's episode that is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, Jeff, let's start with this. It was not the runaway series that we wanted it to be. It was not the
runaway homestand we wanted it to.
Not the runaway homestand that we wanted for it to be. But nevertheless, the Reds went out and they did do okay. I guess that's going to be the label. The Cincinnati Reds, they're okay. Because they went out, they won 4 of the last 7. They're 4 games above 500. They're relevant in the wild card. Some things were exposed over this homestand, some things that left both of us feeling a little disappointed at times.
Yeah, it feels like the Cincinnati Reds are on the intercom going, "We're fine. We're all fine here now. How are
As
you?"
the fire burns back here.
Yeah, because they're fine. Like it's really hard to get mad about where the Reds are right now. They're 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. They're still sort of hanging on by a tiny little thread in the division race. But they're also not where we thought they should be. I mean, the way that this team has played at times this year, it feels like they should be in a better spot. And then there's a number of statistics, and I continue to look at the average runs per game as opposed to the ERA of the team, and that would tell you that they might be even a little bit underperforming based on those numbers and the run differential and things like that. So they're still kind of where I said they were about a week ago, where I think I've seen enough to declare that this team is just aggressively, very amazingly average, and there's a really good chance that if they don't do anything, they can still finish the season around 84 wins. That's not a playoff team, but that's not a losing team either.
Cue all of the comment section saying, I said this was a 500 team. We've seen people saying that. Look, I still think they can win a wild card, but they're going to need to go get some help. They're going to need to go get a right-handed bat for the outfield. Where have we heard that before? Cool. They're going to need to go. You're going to need to go get a bullpen arm, and we might need to have a conversation about going and getting a starting pitcher, because who the heck knows what's going on with Hunter Green and when he is going to be available to pitch. The things that Terry Francona had to say about Hunter Green yesterday were not encouraging. They were not promising. Basically, Terry's like, I don't know. I'm going to leave it up to him to tell me when he's ready to go. I don't like that at all. So all of those things being said, you can't rely on Chase Burns. He is going to have a hard and fast innings limit cap done.
Yes.
And when he hits that number, and he should, and when he hits that number, he's going to stop pitching. So maybe 3 needs now heading into this trade deadline. We're going to get into that in the next segment a little bit about who the Reds might possibly be able to dangle to get some players in return. But Jeff, I want to talk about the Colorado series. And let's just take it in order. I want to talk about Friday night, because I probably have not been as disappointed at a Reds game as I was on Friday night when this team couldn't manage to string together a couple hits against the Colorado Rockies when this team made the Colorado Rockies pitching staff look like it was a bona fide major league pitching staff, when the numbers and the eye test and everything else says they are not. The Reds really just stumbled right out of the gate in a situation where they really had an opportunity to, light the place on fire. Basically, the crowd was into it. Everybody was chanting. Everybody was there watching the Reds play a game that they thought they were going to get to see the Reds blow somebody out. I heard it on the extra innings program on 700 WLW on the way home. A guy called in. He's like, this was my kid's first Major League Baseball game, and I picked this game because I was almost certain the Reds were going to win it. And I'm like,
oh man.
That hits me in my heart, Jeff. I've not been more disappointed in a Reds game in a long time than I was on Friday.
And let's even expand it out. Friday and the first 8 innings of Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they all felt very similarly. Like I watched that Saturday game with some friends, and we were all just kind of sitting around just like, wow, this is really going to happen. They're really going to lose the series to the Colorado Rockies. Like, what on earth are we doing? Just the way that they played. I'm not going to say it was lifeless. I'm not going to say that it was unmotivated. I'm not going to say that it was lazy, but it certainly came off that way. I mean, even the at-bat that won them the game on Saturday was not a hit, so it didn't count as a hit with runners in scoring position. And the triple that Will Benson hit, Spencer Steer was on first, so they were technically 0 for 15 in 2 games with runners in scoring position against the Colorado Rockies. And yes, it's super easy to expand that out and say literally any other team you go 0 for 15 with runners in scoring position, you're probably losing 2 games by a total score of like 25 runs. But like, it's just you happen to face the Rockies, and they gifted you a win on Saturday. Kind of felt like they gifted them a win on Sunday as well. So they get out of this with 2 wins. They win 2 out of 3, get the series win, and nobody feels good about anything because it just seems like the Reds entered this weekend and said exactly what we said. We should beat these guys. And then we got the All-Star break. Like, this is going to be easy.
I think guys were looking forward to their flights tonight. Or last night. I really believe there was some of that going on. Guys just looked ready to be out of town. And that's fine. But now they need to take this opportunity to kind of regroup and redirect and refocus, because they're going back into a stretch of the schedule where they're going to need to win ball games. There's a lot of division games coming up in the second half, Jeff, and they're very important games. So this team needs to refocus. It's so frustrating because they're really where you and I ask them to be. And they are undefeated in doing that in the most frustrating way possible. And what the effort that they showed, the numbers that they put up against the Colorado Rockies are the most frustrating way possible to go into an All-Star break, 4 games over 500 and in contention for a wild card. If I had hair, I'd be pulling it out.
What is the mood that we are in? What mood describes frustrated and yet still kind of happy? Because I'm still kind of happy that they're above 500, but I'm also really frustrated that I feel like they should be better above 500.
They are making me feel meh right now. That's really just like they're I don't know. They're really making me. They find a way to take the wind out of my sails, and I want to be a rah-rah guy for them. I want to tell people, see, look, they're 4 games over 500. They're poised. They're in just the right position to do the things. I can't, with a good conscience, really say that, because every time I try and talk about something like that, they go on a 4-game losing streak. So I don't know how they're meh.
You know exactly what this feeling is. This is the same feeling you get whenever you eat a really good pizza, and then you're eating some Tums afterward because you're like, oh yeah, there's that part of this too. Like the All-Star break feels more like Tums.
They're giving us heartburn. That is an apt analogy, my friend.
Giving us plenty of heartburn, and it feels like the All-Star break is the Tums that we were looking for. But I know this, Steve. This team needs some help. But there's a clear list of players with which the Reds will most likely be dealing from. We'll tell you some names to keep an eye on as the trade deadline really gets going here in the next couple of days. If you're going down to the ballpark, you need to use Game Time. Whether you're going to the Home Run Derby on Monday night in Atlanta, the All-Star Game on Tuesday night, or you're just going to the next Reds home game, Game Time is the way to do it. Game Time will show you your view from your seat so that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Plus, they'll show you the all-in pricing, fees and everything included, so that you know up front how much you're going to pay for your seat. I use Game Time all the time. So does Steve. We go down to the ballpark. We hang out around the ballpark, and we find ourselves a great deal right before we walk in. Check out Game Time today. Download the app and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB to save $20 off your first purchase. So you get those last-minute deals, and you'll get an extra $20 off your first purchase just by using the promo code LOCKEDONMLB on the Game Time app. They got the last-minute deals at the lowest prices, guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine. If you're an everydayer, thank you so much. And if you're not an everydayer, hit that subscribe button, become an everydayer, make us a big part, maybe even your first listen every day. We always appreciate those folks. And if you do so, you'll also get the Reds postcast with Tim Daniel. He goes live at the end of every ball game, and it'll be in your audio feed shortly after he's done going live. That's the Reds.
Can I just say? Can I just say real quick? Say real quick, also, Jeff, that it was just really good for the Locked On takeover of the Bowtie Bar at the ballpark yesterday. Both of us with Tim down there. I had a great time at the ballpark. I just wanted to say thanks to all the people that came up and said hello, and you wanted to shake hands and talk story about baseball for a minute. That's our favorite part. We love talking to you guys. Yes. So keep doing that. Come up and say hi if you see us. We love talking baseball with you. It was great to see you guys all out at the ballpark.
You know, there are games throughout the year that provide different emotional responses based on outcomes, based on performances, based on things that happen during the game. And then there are games that I just feel recharged by because of things like that, where it's just like a great hang. You're just talking, great time with great folks. That was a good time at the ballpark there on Sunday afternoon. But I know this, Steve, the Reds are in need of some help. And we've talked a lot about what they need to go get. What we haven't really mentioned a lot of, and every so often we'll throw a name out or something like that, but who the Reds could trade, players that they would trade away. And ideally, we are talking about prospects here. There's a chance, and I know I saw Nick Martinez's name pop up in an article of like top pitchers to be dealt at the deadline or something like that. There's a chance that works out where you buy, sell, move. But I don't think that's really the way that's going to help the Reds the most. The way it's going to help the Reds the most is if they send prospects, they get major league talent. So there's a key list of players that, I don't think Nick Krall is calling another general manager and be like, let me give you the list of players that I'm really happy to get rid of. But he's got a list, and he's going to have these names, and he's going to drop a name or two or something like that for the deal, because this group of players are players who are eligible for the Rule 5 draft this coming off season. That means that if they do not add them to the active 40-man roster, then the Reds could lose them to the Rule 5 draft to another team. This is all designed so that teams cannot hoard prospects and things like that. So that's why that sort of a thing exists. The Reds have a very extensive list, though, of players that they need to protect this offseason. And I think it's likely that we see multiple of these guys dealt, ideally, because the Reds make multiple trades, the number one name. There's two top names on this list, really, and I think they're equal. Chase Petty and Edwin Arroyo are both names that the Reds must add to the 40-man roster or risk losing to the Rule 5 draft. And I think if they're going to make a trade, those are going to be two guys that they're talking a lot about.
Is Chase Petty already on the 40-man roster, having been in the big leagues this year?
Oh, yes, that's right. So they don't have to worry about that. So then, yeah, just Edwin Arroyo would be the top name then.
Okay, and that's the name I think that's going to be the biggest draw. And I'll go on record right now. It won't hurt my feelings if they trade him and fill some needs that gives this team an opportunity to make the playoffs, because I'm tired of waiting till next year. Do we know that Edwin Arroyo is going to be able to hit big league pitching? We don't know that. Do we know that Edwin Arroyo is going to continue to have his stock go up? We don't know that. If the Reds can parlay him into, not nothing, don't give him away. But if you can really address the needs of the major league team by trading Edwin Arroyo, then I'm all for it. There's really nobody in the minor leagues right now, maybe Sal Stewart, that I would be
Got
reluctant to
called up to
trade.
AAA. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody else is, I think, fair game at this point if they're still in the minor leagues.
Yeah, and I think that this is an interesting list because going down the list, there's a lot of names that, if you are a hardened prospect fan, you will know. Most regular fans are not going to know that, and that's okay. That's fine. But know this list includes about 20 players, and I don't think any one of them are untouchable. The only guy that I think I would kind of wince if they traded would be Hector Rodriguez, and that's just because he's closer to the major leagues. But again, we don't know who he's going to be. Like, he's had a nice season, but that doesn't mean that he's going to come up and just set the world on fire and remain an everyday outfielder for the rest of his career. So I think that if you can get a guy like that, if you can flip a Hector Rodriguez for like a Ramon Laureano or even somebody on an expiring deal, as long as it's the right guy, I think I'd be okay with that. I mean, there's a lot of pitchers on this list. There's guys like Jose Acuna, who has been pretty impressive, and seeing his rise through the minors kind of makes me think that he could be in the major leagues maybe later next year. But again, that probably makes him look pretty good to another team that's looking to deal.
And there's a little bit more complications with the 40-man than just the Rule 5, right?
Yeah.
They're also going to have to put several guys back on the 40-man, guys like Brandon Williamson, guys like Julian Aguiar, guys like
TJ
Rhett Lauder,
Antone.
TJ Antone, and Rhett Lauder, if he doesn't make it back this season, he's going to have to be put back on the 40-man roster once he comes off in the offseason. So it's a little bit more complicated than just trying to create room for those guys in the minor leagues. And I think you're right. That's probably where the list starts. That's probably where Nick Kral's looking to find his starting point. I think we've reached a point with this team. We've reached a point at the big league level where, for lack of a better term, it's what's out there about it, prospect hoarding, right? Now, I think we've reached a point where it's time to send some prospects away and address the needs at the major league level. We haven't seen a lot of this from Nick Krall. In his tenure, he hasn't done a lot of adding. Yeah. He's done the opposite. He's been selling. I don't think the Reds will be sellers. I really do hope that the Castellinis give Nick Krall the blessing to go out there and address some needs and get this team into the postseason.
I am of the mindset, and especially from the pitching side of things, that if the Reds do make a couple of trades that involve prospects and nothing but, I don't think they're approaching the whole dreaded, are they mortgaging the future argument, because it feels like the system is a lot deeper than it's been in years past. And that's a credit to Nick Krall and the trades that he's made, but it's also a credit to the drafting they've done recently, the development that they've done recently. Scouting reports are all pretty solid on a lot of these guys, and even the guys in the lower minors that we still kind of keep an eye on, but we also say that they've got to do some more stuff before we get really excited. There's a lot of traits and a lot of tools that guys have that are really catching people's eyes. And so I think that it's important to note that, like, just because, like, if there is a deal that involves a Chase Petty, that doesn't mean that there are officially no more pitchers left in the Red system. That's completely false. And if they trade Sal Stewart, which that better be a really good trade, but if they trade Sal Stewart, they've got some other guys too to fill that spot as well. Like, I think overall the Reds farm system is at a point where it might be the best possible point to deal from and to be buyers. And I think that fuels my opinion. And I've held the opinion for the past month and a half that the Reds should be buyers. And I think that it's fueled a lot by the fact that it seems like they are just ready and able to spend. Hopefully they will be willing to spend as well.
And, there's another piece too. You would talk about mortgaging the future. We don't know what baseball is going to look like after 2026. We don't know what the financial model is going to be. We don't know how the minor league system is going to, there's a lot of changes coming. So I think I agree with you, and that this is their best opportunity to make a move and act over this little 2-year window that we remain in before that CBA is up. Get to the playoffs in 2025, build this team to compete in 2026, get some wins under your belt as we head into what's going to be a very precarious negotiation session between the players and the owners.
Dude, and I want to see the Banks at the playoffs. I cannot imagine what that'll be like. That'll be so much fun. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And the income that they would generate for themselves as a team and be able to put back into the team, ideally, would be unimaginable, and the kind of numbers that they have not seen, because the last time they were in the playoffs, nobody was down here because they couldn't be down here because of COVID.
Mhm.
So let's see them get to the playoffs, make some moves, Nick. Let's get it there, because I don't want to hear anymore about guys down in low A and how big a deal they could be in 2028. Like, I want to see how big a deal this team can be in 2025.
Well, speaking of guys that are going to be down in low A and not be here until 2028, 2029, the pick is in. The Reds have made their first round draft pick, and it didn't go the way we thought. We're going to tell you what the Reds did and weigh some risk versus reward coming up next. If you can't watch us here on YouTube, take us on the road with you through any podcasting app. We're seriously on all of them. Find the audio feeds there. Take us to the gym. Take us for a walk. Take us in the car. We would love talking Reds baseball with you there as well. All right, Jeff, the pick is in. The Reds have made their selection. And just because we jumped up and down and said, don't draft a high schooler, they drafted a high schooler.
Yep. Ike Irish was on the board. Jamie Arnold was on the board. And the Reds drafted Steele Hall from Alabama. And I don't necessarily think that I disagree.
Not the University of Alabama.
Yeah, the from Hewitt-Trussville High School out of Alabama. Kid's not even 18 yet. He's 17 years old. So we're talking about a blank canvas of talent. Scouts love his athleticism. They say that he has 70 grade speed right now, and that's graded on the major league scale. That's not, oh, he has 70 speed for a high schooler. It's like, based on the players that we watch, he has a 70 grade speed. The other stuff needs development. They like his bat speed. They think it's a little bit erratic, but they like his bat speed, and they think that they can develop that. He could even move to center field. This is not like a straight up shortstop. We're done. We're not moving him. He's got a long way to go. And this is the difference here, in something that we talked a little bit about during the preview process. But just to reiterate, Steele Hall's not going to be here next year. Like Rhett Lauder was the year after he got drafted, like Chase Burns was this year, like Matt McClain. It didn't take him that long to get to the majors either. That we're not talking about that with Steele Hall. Steele Hall is going to be a guy that we are going to follow his progression. He's going to start in Arizona. He's going to go to Dayton. He's going to hit all the spots. And I mean, I think we're probably talking about best case scenario. He's here in 2028, 2029. So yeah, this is a long process. And I think the Reds are betting on their player development more so than they were betting on a guy like an Ike Irish, who they could, have a high floor and maybe get him up to the majors super fast.
I feel like this is a gamble, risk versus reward. There's a lot of reward that could come from this, but it's a very big risk. Number 9 pick overall that we just don't know. And given how some of these things have worked out over the last several years, I guess I'm just a little suspect. And I would have much rather they had gone with an Ike Irish that's a little bit more polished, a little bit more ability to know what we know, and then know and identify what we don't and work on it. We have no idea what we know. He's 17 years old. There is absolutely no way to know how he's going to continue to develop, how he's going to be. So we'll have to revisit this one, Jeff, as we're celebrating, our 20 combined years or 21 combined years of podcasting, when he finally is old enough to evaluate.
It definitely will be a little while. And it's interesting because he actually reclassified. He was initially in the 2026 class, but I don't remember exactly the set of circumstances that allowed him to reclassify, but he reclassified to this year's class. And that made him one of the youngest players available. But they loved, and Tyler Gibbons told us about this, and this is something that you can see through draft trends with the Reds. But they love the athleticism, they love the tools, love the traits, and they can see a world where he is one of their best players. And I think that for me, that's what this pick is, and that's why it's so difficult for me to be enthusiastic about it, but it's also so difficult for me to be disappointed by it, because I just, looking down the road is so hard to do. Like, Me and my wife always have this conversation when we're trying to like move things around in a room. She's like, I just can't picture it without the things actually being there. I'm like, well, you got to put them somewhere in order to see that. That's what this is with prospects. Like, we as fans cannot see what Steele Hall is going to be. And as much as scouts say that they know the traits and they see what he has, they also don't see the finished product. So there's a lot of risk in this pick. And kind of like we talked about with Seth Hernandez, that prep pitcher that we had talked about a little bit, he went a few picks before the Reds to the Pirates. But it's so interesting to see because the Reds were not the only team to do this. There were 8 high school shortstops picked in the first 15 picks, I believe is what it was. So there are a lot of teams taking risks. And I think that they looked at this draft and they said that the best position group is the high school shortstops. And we want to leave this draft with one of those guys. And so that's what the Reds ended up doing, which, by the way, S-tier name, Steele Hall. I'm all in on that. But yeah, we're talking about a long time before we're going to be talking about him in Cincy.
If they can find a dude named Copper Oates to draft tomorrow, I think we'll be doing really, really good.
Could draft Jack Bauer.
That's or draft.
That's your name, Jack Bauer.
That's right.
Jack
you know,
Bauer.
I think this is a good reminder that try as it might, wish as it does, that the Major League Baseball draft matters as much as NBA draft, the NFL draft. It's just not the same beast. And you really crystallized it there with 8 high school kids being drafted in the first 15 picks. We're not going to know anything about them for half a decade. So it really crystallizes just how different Major League Baseball's draft is from some of the other professional sports out there.
I'm intrigued to see how this plays out because I really thought that based on Lauder and Burns and McLean that the Reds might do that again and pick a guy with a high floor. And make no mistake about it, like it's not as if they could have drafted Ike Irish and put him in the lineup tomorrow. So to say that you're drafting based on need, that's not correct. Like I'm still talking about the traits of a high floor, but even he would need to develop some. Like I remember talking to Jeff Ellis on our draft preview, and he said that, you know, he hit a lot of ground balls this year. His average launch angle really lowered quite a bit. So that would be something that the Reds would need to work on him with. And likely he starts out in Dayton next year anyway. So everything is development. And that is where the hard part about the draft is, because I think when a college football player is drafted by an NFL team, he's pretty close, at least in the first round. In the second round, even arguably as well. He's pretty close to being a viable everyday or a viable week in and week out player in the NFL. In the NBA, first round picks are pretty close to being viable everyday basketball players for their team. That is not the case with Major League Baseball, because unless you're Mike Leake or a couple of very just special individuals, you play in the minor leagues because you've got to develop some part of your game before your organization feels comfortable bringing you up. Some take longer than others, and Steele Hall is going to take longer than Ike Irish, who got drafted by the Baltimore Orioles in the number 19 pick. It's going to take him longer to get to the bigs than Irish does, but it's going to be years before we know which pick was the better pick. And so hopefully the Reds gamble and win on their player development system.
Well, get in the comment section. Tell us what you think about the pick. We would love to hear your thoughts on this. And programming note, if you're listening to this on Monday morning, tune in to Cincy 360 at noon today. Jeff and I are going to be on the first hour from noon to 1 with Austin Elmore talking Cincinnati Reds baseball on ESPN 1530, which you can also catch on the iHeartRadio app.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you check that out, and hope you subscribe here to the Locked On Reds podcast and be part of us every day, because we will be with you all throughout trade deadline season. We'll kind of wrap up some of the other draft picks with some curious scouting reports and seeing exactly what the Reds added through the rest of the draft, because they have plenty more picks where that came from. And we will also be getting you ready for the second half. We'll recap too what Ellie and Andrew Abbott do in the All-Star game, because we are Locked On Reds every single day.